So walk us through what you saw the Democratic ticket do today in South Georgia.
Look, the Democratic ticket, someone is trying to expand the map in places like Georgia, not just by focusing on Georgia, but by focusing on areas that presidential contenders in the Democratic Party rarely even venture to. It's going down to Savannah, but it's also going down to Liberty County, which is about an hour or so outside of Savannah, a place where, the last time they had a presidential contender visit was probably back when Bill Clinton was running for office. It's been a very long time. It's a very deep blue county. So this was not going into red territory, but it still is looking to energize Democratic voters in places where they're not used to seeing Kamala Harris. They're not used to seeing Tim Walz. They're not used to seeing presidential contenders.
It does make a difference. We had some video today of voters in South Georgia on MSNBC that my colleagues got. And the voters, surprisingly, they were people that we talked to were excited about the visit. The campaign admits that they are campaigning in rural Georgia to try to cut into Donald Trump's margin. So they're giving us a strategy out loud. But they do want to put the whole state in play, not just the Atlanta suburbs, which obviously helped Joe Biden capture Georgia in 2020. What do you think about that strategy this time around?
Yeah, well, Harris's Battleground States Director, Dan Cannon, has really said this is not just a strategy that they're doing in Georgia. It's also North Carolina. It's Pennsylvania. They feel like they really need to cut and or shrink their margins really in those places to really have a chance to beat Donald Trump, because Biden won by the skin of his teeth in a lot of these states. And Donald Trump traditionally has been underestimated in polling, whether it's 2016, 2020. So they cannot be comfortable, even though Harris continues to poll after poll really start to reach ahead of Trump, and they're not taking that for granted.
And not taking it for granted. Eugene, this is really on brand for the vice president. You, in 2022, you were writing about why she kept going to unconventional places.
You had to remind me of that story.
You know, we got the details. We put the tear thing up on the screen now. What is actually behind those decisions? Bring our viewers into the room a little bit.
So first, what people are seeing right now is they're thinking Quentin Fowlkes, who is the principal deputy campaign manager, who's from Georgia, who's from rural Georgia, is at the head of this. But it also happens to be how Vice President Harris has thought about this for a very long time, right? In that story in 2022, I just started realizing once you guys were able to get out and get out in the streets, she was going to these kind of what in D.C. people were thinking of random places like Brandywine, Maryland, Sunset, Louisiana, which is just thousands of people. And when I did the story and I called the folks that went with her, is some of these trips came from her just talking to people, talking to people from these rural areas who said, no one ever comes. We're not sure if people care about us. And so she said, let's go. So she told, had the staff get it together and go to a lot of these places. And it's about touch points, right? At the time, she wasn't running for anything, right? They had just won. It's 2022. So really it's about touch points and talking to Americans about the kinds of things they wanted to do for them, right? Infrastructure bill, the IRA, all of the kinds of things that they were trying to do and working on at that time. But now she's continuing that, right? So her team knows this motion. She knows what it says. And when you think about the way that she talks about marginalized groups, she says Black, Brown, Native, and rural, right? She says that. When you think about the kinds of things that she's worked on, rural broadband was something she herself brought into.
Rural broadband was something the vice president was like, we are doing this.
All the time. Yes. You were there. And so it became a part of what the administration did, because she had a conversation with someone in 2019 who said that when he had to do homework, had to go to the McDonald's parking lot to get Wi-Fi. And so these are things that she's thinking about all the time, and now she's able to capitalize on it. And so it makes it easier because she's not starting from square one.
And just to add to Eugene's point as well, Harris was already spending a lot of time, more time than Biden, in a lot of these Sunbelt states, Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina. So these states are already familiar with her, even though now she's running as the top of the ticket, but she's already invested time in these places.
I mean, that's such a good point, Greg, because the issues that are at some of the touchstone issues in this race, they overlap. You talk about abortion, reproductive freedom, all these issues on the economy, right? Eugene talked about the rural pieces. You can, whether it's North Carolina or Nevada, there are more rural parts of all of those states, and the vice president has, in fact, been traveling. I think about Georgia and how it flipped the last time. And one pastor, Bishop Reginald Jackson of the AME Church, he was really key to mobilizing voters in 2020 to help flip the state. He's now moving out of the state. You know, in the AME Church, when you get your assignment, you just go. That's how it goes, folks. How much of a loss is this bishop for Democrats so close to November?
I'm so glad the New York Times did this tribute to Bishop Jackson, because he has been this foundational base in Georgia, someone who has, yes, helped Democrats progress and advance their causes in Georgia, but also had very close ties with Republicans. Georgia's hate crimes law might not have happened without Bishop Jackson's advocacy and his relationship with Republican Governor Brian Kemp, urging him from day one to push this, to make this a campaign priority. So Bishop Jackson was someone who led petitions, who led protests, who led all sorts of initiatives fighting for voting rights advancements and other more liberal causes, but also was able to work with Republicans in very unique ways.
Bishop Jackson, I mean, truly one of the stalwarts of the AME Church and in Georgia. Eugene, earlier on MSNBC, I want to switch gears just slightly. My colleague Ari Melber interviewed Corey Lewandowski, who was formerly of the Trump campaign, now back in the Trump campaign orbit again. He was asked about similarities between Donald Trump's platform and Project 2025's proposals. And Corey Lewandowski has something interesting to say. I'm going to play it for you.
I've never read it. I can speak on behalf of the president. I'm certain he's never read a 925-page document that Project 2025 put out. But I will say this. President Trump did what the American people overwhelmingly wanted when it came to the issue of life. He returned it back to the states by appointing pro-life judges at the Supreme Court who overturned Roe v. Wade. And now every state gets to decide.
I always think it's important to note that in the wake of Roe v. Wade being overturned, every single time abortion has been on the ballot anywhere in a state across the country, voters have overwhelmingly went to the ballot box and voted in support of reinforcing their reproductive freedoms. So this notion that it's, people wanted it to be returned to the states so they can make a decision, they are tripling down on what Roe was in the states. This is an ongoing issue, I believe, for the Trump campaign. I know they have their talking point, but what is it with this strategy, and do you think it's going to change as we get closer to the debate?
Yeah, I mean, when you think about President Trump, he doesn't really have a policy North Star, right? So when he thinks
Corey Lewandowski said he hasn't read 900-page document, and I just was like, ooh, yeah, you don't say that about your principles.
It wasn't the same. That wasn't what he thought he was saying. But I think, when you think about the way when he started talking about abortion earlier this year, when he started realizing that it was a problem for Republicans, he said he wants the best for everybody. Like, he wants to figure out a deal that works for everyone, kind of the art of the deal in that. What he's saying now is, I'm going to be good for women to have their own choices. But I think the American people understand that what happened was he put these conservatives in the highest court of the land. He said when he was running in 2016 that he was going to do that they were going to overturn Roe to get these very conservative people on his side to win the election. And so the American people aren't kind of fooled by him trying to have it both ways at this point. And it's hurting him with the very conservative people, because they're also upset because they're hearing him kind of try to tack to the middle here, and they're upset. It's not making anyone happy. When you talk to voters and you look at what voters do, it's not just that when it was referendums and it was on abortion itself was on the ballot. There's also candidates who talked about it, right? And every time in 2022, in 2023, any candidate who was saying, I'm going to protect Roe, I want to go further than Roe, they did well. So this continues to be an issue for Republicans that is harming them, and for Democrats and Vice President Harris, who's been working on this issue, seems to continue to be a boon for them.
I think it's part of the live reality that voters are dealing with also. This is not just a policy conversation or a theoretical conversation. It is real for people in the states. There are women who cannot get the care they need, depending on where they live, if that care is an abortion or anything tangentially related to abortion care. It brings me to North Carolina, because we noted at the top that Cook Political Report has changed North Carolina's status to lean Republican to toss up. And it noted that the race is tightening, not because Harris is cutting into Trump's vote, but because Democrats and Democratic-leaning independents are coming home. And tonight, the campaign actually announced that Governor Walz will head to North Carolina tomorrow. What do you think of how they're trying to capitalize on this? I continue to say that Sherry Beasley, who was the Democrats' candidate for Senate in the midterm elections, had Democrats supported Sherry Beasley, the state could look even more different today than it does.
Yeah, I think all the time when I'm in Sunbelt states, voters continue to bring up abortion as perhaps their number one issue. That's women and men that I'm hearing from those states. But I think the Harris campaign is really rebuilding this anti-Trump coalition that Biden had in 2020. That includes Democrats, that includes independents, and that includes Republican voters who were turned off by Trump. And abortion is one of the main reasons that they are. And something that Trump has sort of moderated on is this issue of medication abortion. He has flip-flopped. He's left the door open to potentially banning it, as Project 2025 says that they want him to do at least. But the fact that voters are even know about Project 2025, a think tank's policy agenda, and the fact that it's now being used in ads that the campaign Harris is using, I think that's already an issue for Trump. The fact that he's having to defend himself and distance himself from this project.
And Democrats aren't usually good at being on the offense, right?
No, very bad.
So very bad at it. But you're seeing, at least on Project 2025, when we've been on the road together quite a bit, voters will bring it up themselves, right? We don't even have to ask them about it. So what it tells you is that Democrats finally have an issue that is seeming to work. They're spending a lot of money when they're doing it in these ads, but also tying it to Donald Trump, even though he's trying to untangle himself. J.D. Vance wrote the forward, so it makes it a little hard to move away from it.